I was driving a $400,000 car that wasn't mine without license plates racing through Manhattan. So everybody remembers like their first love, right? It's the like story of that first girl or guy that they were in love with. You also do the same with the first supercar you drive. And I'll never forget mine. It's a pretty magical experience because if you think back on it, I was driving a $400,000 car that wasn't mine without license plates racing through Manhattan. Like, not bad, right? And this is me being younger and slightly more adventurous. But I used to make these DVDs called Super Speeders DVDs. Started out as Beyond the Quarter, turned into Super Speeders, and I would sell them at the New York Auto Show. My buddy Dan Coyle, who has a little tuning shop down in Dallas now, would be doing this thing called Fantasy Photo. He would get some cars from Manhattan Motor Cars, put the doors up on like a Murcielago or a Celine S7 or something cool. And then there would be a girl. They would take a photo with the girl. He'd pay $20 to take their photo, print it out, go home. And at the end of the show, guess what? Cars had to go back to the dealership. Now, the dealership was only 2 or 3 blocks away, but that didn't mean we couldn't get lost. The only downside to that is when you're driving 2 or 3 blocks, no big deal, auto show, move out, whatever, no license plates, so you're just going 2 or 3 blocks. We ended up going like, 30 or 40 blocks. And when you do that it was like the perfect time of day, and we just had such a great time. There was 2 Lamborghinis, the orange one, Dan picked the orange one. I had no problem taking the anniversary, blue, green, whatever it was. It was one of those cars that I drove, and I said, I'm going to buy this car one day. And I wish I did, because they're probably collectible now, but mine would have 600,000 miles on it by this point in time, so it wouldn't really be collectible. But I loved the experience itself. Was something amazing. We ended up going, instead of going towards the dealership, we ended up going away from the dealership, up the West Side Highway, turned around, and it was just that like perfect time of day where the traffic was light and we could sort of like, we get the lights, we're looking at each other. This is like 3 years after Fast and the Furious 1. It's me and my buddy would go street racing all the time. I met him street racing. And here we are, we're going out, and we're just like 2 Lamborghinis, 2 kids that could never even dream about affording Lamborghinis. And here we are in 2 brand new Murcielagos. So light goes green, we're both out. We had a great time. And it's funny because this is the time, and I'll never forget, it was a very popular clip from my video series, pulling up next to him, and I just popped the door up, and I'm like driving with the door open. I guess that became more of a thing as time went on. But I was like, I wonder if I could open the door at like 40 or 50 miles an hour. And the answer was yes. And that was really cool. Dan tried to then drift his car, the orange one. He just tried to do a little 4-wheel drift. And he's a great driver, but didn't drift it so nice. Ended up smoking the clutch to the point where we're like, wow, this thing really stinks, that we have to like drive it around a little bit just to try to get that clutch smell out. Still didn't get out. Ultimately, that car went to the dealership, but we knew the guys at the dealership and everything. That car came back within like 800 miles of being sold to the customer for a new clutch. And the customer paid for it or something. But I can't promise you that no further damage happened to that clutch. But like all logic would point towards that smoky, like awful, like good God, you got smoke coming out of the car. And that's one of those things. You get these people that like, they think they're doing a burnout, but they're only spinning clutch. So all the smoke that they're seeing is just the clutch billowing smoke. Try doing that in the $400,000 car that you don't own, that you're only supposed to be driving 2 blocks. So that was, it was super memorable. I'll always remember it. It was the single, it was such a great experience. Like there's things that you can never wipe out of this memory. And me driving that car and racing up and down the West Side Highway. And I'm not, it's a long time ago. We were doing probably 130 in a 25 or 30. Like the West Side Highway is 3 lanes wide and it's a bunch of traffic lights. So you have to be able to stop eventually if those lights turn. I'll always remember. And I go from driving a Corvette at the time. And that's, for me, I'm leasing a Corvette, so don't get too excited that I was born rich or anything like that. These cars were still so far out of my reach. but just listening to the sound echoing off the buildings was absolutely amazing. Being strapped into a V12 engine is something, especially with a manual box and just how buttery smooth the gear shifting was. It was just, it's Italian like masterpiece that I get to drive. It's not something that you can really explain to people. And it's just one of those things, as somebody who is a car fanatic and everybody's walking around the show and these cars are parked here and you've got thousands of people gathering around just to look at it. And here we are at whatever, 24 years old, 25 years old. Thank you, Brian Miller, who owns Manhattan Motor Cars, for allowing us and trusting us, wrongfully so, to drive these cars. But it was just such a great experience to be able to, and almost a privilege to be able to get behind the wheels of these things. If I was my company, I would be like, no, you guys drive the Boxsters or something. Like, I wouldn't say take the Lamborghinis. And the fact that every year after the show, it was like the icing on the cake. We'd go, we'd sell DVDs, we'd sell pictures, we'd make a lot of money. And next thing you know, we get to drive these cars the next morning. And it was just, life didn't get much better than that week every year. That was always a great time. And not only are these people looking at it, the fact that these people, they were itching to do nothing more than sit in the cars. If you've seen just the joy that just sitting in one of these vehicles brings somebody, like it's like almost like a life-changing moment. People are like just the fact that they touch it, it's like they just like touch baby Jesus. And that's something that you have to realize, the privilege and the ability to be able to drive something like that. It really hit home. Now I'm so accustomed to these cars, I've lost that. And it takes a really special car for me to be like, get chills. But with these cars, I mean, that was one of those things that you weren't eating leading up to this because you knew you were going to be driving that car. And it was just something that, it was an emotion that's it's tough to bottle. And it's just something you can't hide it. I probably had the biggest grin on my face. Car guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody's got that car or that one car that they remember, that like the first time I sat in that, the first time I drove that, the first time I did this. And that for me was the first time that I had that truly special moment in the car where I was like, this is as good as it gets. Luckily, it's gotten better since then. We were young guys doing young stuff, and I'm glad we lived to tell the story, because that was definitely one for the record books.
Planning to buy a used car? Want to be on the safe side? Check to see if the mileage has been tampered with. It's easy with the Carly app and adapter. Carly. Learn more at mycarly.com.